What's up, everyone? It's Ruby here, bringing you guys another video where I kind of just talk about the things that I really love. And I don't know if I would necessarily say I would love horror, but I like it. I like what it represents. And I don't get bothered by horror usually, which is why I don't necessarily like horror movies, because they tend to be a little bit slow sometimes, at least setting up things. I just want to get to the horror part, and it can honestly just be a little hit or miss, because sometimes like, the beginning part is kind of boring and everything. But there are a few like horror movies and horror games that I actually like. And it's not necessarily the ones that you would expect me to talk about when we're talking about horror. Because I don't really get bothered by like jump scares or like gore or like that stuff. And in fact, I don't really get scared like that. But I figured because it's Halloween, it would be appropriate to talk about these kinds of things. And I want to talk about the ones where you wouldn't necessarily expect to even be horror. And, I'm using Carrie as the image because I think that Carrie is an actually interesting one. I don't find it scary, but it's intriguing. It's interesting. The concept is interesting. And that's how I find all of the sort of like demon exorcist themed stuff. I always find to be interesting. Because it's interesting how they decide to portray the devils and the demons and how close to accurate they try to, mimic this stuff. Because they want to make it realistic. They want to make you believe that this can be real, even though it's not. You have things like Paranormal Activity, The Devil Inside, Carrie, all dealing, even The Exorcist, all dealing with these demonic ideas and the idea of an exorcism or possession or someone who is not normal, like Carrie, someone who, there's all sorts of setups, there's all sorts of things. Now, it's been a while since I've actually watched Carrie. The only one that I've seen, by the way, is the one with Chloe Moretz. I have not seen the original one. I don't really like watching like the original movies just because the effects tend to be really bad to the point where like I kind of want to like gouge my eyes out because it's so bad. Like I get it, it was made in the 80s and people did not have editing softwares, but oh god, some of those are really bad. Gemstones, but really bad. Like, I tried watching Friday the 13th, the original one. I couldn't get past it because the effects were just so bad. It was just so bad. The Shining I can watch. The Shining I can get through, but it is... Also, The Shining is kind of a little bit slow for me, but... whatever. We're not really here to talk about that necessarily. But I guess what I really want to talk about is like the unexpected horrors. The ones that aren't even necessarily genred as horror games. Or horror movies even. Because it's interesting how sometimes like horror can make its way into other genres. Like, for example, you have a lot of like the survival games. Survival-based games that are inherently horrific, not because of its contents, but because people fear reality. Reality is a fear, and there's a reason why the ones that are most successful tend to be the ones that try to mimic real life, because the most horrifying thing to anyone is something that can happen in real life. It doesn't matter if there's like the things that are obviously fictional don't really matter because people don't really believe them in the first place. So that's not really terrifying to anyone. But the scariest things are the ones that remind us of real life. I think that's why Cinderella, Lady Tremaine is a powerful villain. Not because she's like a lion or, I don't know, what are the other villains? Or like, I don't know, she's not anything like the other villains. And yet she's terrifying because she can be real. She's not like Ursula. She's not an octopus or any of that. But she is a mother. An abusive mother. A horrifying example of what a mother could be. And many have experienced. And so you have this horrifying image of this mother who treated their daughter or stepdaughter horribly. And in the case of Carrie, it's kind of the same way. Carrie is very mistreated, very poorly treated because she's different and because they don't really know what to do with her, so they decide to, let's say, try to like kind of suppress what she is. And she later learns of her abilities, and that's terrifying. She doesn't know what's going on. People think that she's just this weird, freaky girl, but in reality, she's just as human as we are. But what makes her different is her connections, the father and mother. And that is horrifying. There's also things like Subnautica that is, in a way, horrifying. Not because, in fact, Subnautica is a horror game, by the way. I just want to make that clear. It's not technically tagged as a horror game, but it is. Because, again, it's kind of one of those things where it preys on a common fear that people have, like being stranded on a deserted planet or island, and water. Water is something everybody fears. Not everybody, but a lot of people do. Not water specifically, but the ocean, the immensity, the unknowns, the monsters that lurk under the sea, the areas that have never been explored. Who knows what may be out there. Maybe you'll end up wandering into a giant squid or something. I don't know. Sorry. But it's horrifying. And, you have games like Doki Doki Literature... I'm sorry. Like Doki Doki Literature Club. And it's not necessarily... It's not a horror game. I mean, it is. It's psychological horror. So it plays with your mind. It manipulates you into thinking one reality, and then it ends up being that it's not quite right. Now, I wouldn't necessarily see something like Doki Doki Literature Club as horrifying, but others might. The idea of these psychotic high school girls, Why not? But then you have other, like, psychological horrors. Twilight. No. And I think, to me, what gets me the most is something that can play with my mind. Because I don't really get bothered by, like, jump scares or anything. I mean, I'll react. I might react. Not always. In fact, a lot of times I don't. But on the off chance that I actually do, it's fun. Because I get to feel... Well, it's not fun. Well, jump scares aren't fun. They're just, they're not even scary, to be honest. Like, it goes for maybe, like, a 1 second reaction. And even then, I don't really, feel anything. I don't know. But there are some areas of horror that is interesting. In fact, some people would say that the most horrifying movies are the animated ones. The ones that are like Tim Burton's. Like the one, like Coraline, Corpse Bride, that stuff. And the reason why it's horrifying is not because of any jump scare or anything, but because of the creepiness that it is. It's creepy. Those little dolls with their little those button eyes. That's horrifying to some people. And then you have games like Until Dawn that plays with your fears. It would ask you directly, what are you scared of? And then it caters the game to play with those emotions. And that is such an interesting thing. Like, I've never really been, like, interested in horror necessarily, like, in the same way that some people would. But I also am intrigued by horror because it does something that not a lot of genres do. In fact, I think the closest thing to horror is actually comedy, because they both play with extreme emotions. Like romance, it depends. Like, sometimes it can make you feel a little sexy, a little aroused. Other times it can make you feel, alone and just isolated and, like you want a partner or something. But then comedies and horrors are different because they are designed to make you feel a specific emotion at a specific time. It wants you to be horrified. Like, horror wants you to be horrified, and comedy wants you to be, amused. Whereas something like action and like action adventure and like mystery and romance and sci-fi and fantasy, they don't really do that. Sure, they might evoke emotion, but they're not targeting a specific emotion. I feel like horror and comedy, really, those two are very similar in a lot of its practices. You can go for the cheap joke that might get like 1 second laugh, or you can really play up the extremes and maybe get someone to actually, really feel amused by it. And what's even more interesting are the comedy horrors, or the horror comedies. I don't know. I think it's called comedy horror. It's one of the two. It doesn't matter. But, the ones that are purposely spoofs, and yet they make fun of the stereotypes that horror movies have. That's what a lot of the comedy horrors will do. They'll just make fun of horror movies because there's a lot of areas that are easy to make fun of, like the spooky villain, or the gore fest that occasionally happens, or the demons, or anything like that. And it's always interesting to watch. I might not necessarily be amused all the time by everything, but I am intrigued at the very least. I think that my favorite, like, horror movies and, like, horror games are the ones that have a unique approach to a story, and not necessarily the ones that are mainstream, because I tend to get bored by horror games and horror movies very easily, because, again, I'm not really bothered by their practices, and so I pay attention to more of, like, the story and everything. And let's be honest, you don't go to a horror movie for the story, but that's okay. But the ones that are able to really get you are the ones that are most intriguing, because they don't go for the cheap horrors or the cheap tricks. They go for the impact. Like, Get Out is a really good one. I love Get Out. It is so good. I really recommend, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Go watch Get Out. I also like a lot of the Exorcist movies, like The Devil Inside and The Exorcist. And the reason why I like that is because it's so fascinating the way that they deal with certain things. Because obviously it revolves around religion. And, you know, religion is a hot topic for everyone, but it's also something that can be real to some people. And also, it's just this curious nature, I guess. And The Devil Inside is really interesting. I highly recommend it. It's so underrated. The Devil Inside is extremely underrated because, you know, it's not, I wouldn't say it's the best horror movie, but it's, I guess, I mean, it is one of the first that I saw, and I really enjoyed it because of the way that it deals. You know, I won't spoil it because I actually recommend you go watch it. Find it somewhere, whether it's like on like Amazon Prime or something, I don't know. But I'm sure you could find it somewhere. Maybe use a VPN to find it on Netflix somewhere. I don't know if The Devil Inside is even on Netflix anywhere. But let me see. Devil Inside Netflix. Oh, it's actually on Netflix. Yeah, it's actually on the US Netflix. Go figure. That is amazing. But yeah, it actually is available. So there you go. You guys can go check it out on Netflix. Highly recommend it. Go watch it. Go watch Devil Inside. Highly recommend it again. I also recommend Carrie. Either one. I don't care. But Carrie's really good. I would also, in terms of games, I don't have a PS4, but I like watching Until Dawn, and I've heard it's a very good playing experience, and I would highly recommend that one as well. If you want like something that's like survival based, Green Hell. It's not really meant to be a horror, but but it can be scary. It kind of goes with like the whole idea of reality being spooky, and it's really good. And if you go with a story mode, it can be it's horrifying, all right. There's also like Emily Wants to Play, of course, although that one, I always get bored by that one because it's very repetitive and it doesn't really change. Once you get the gimmicks down, it's kind of boring, to be honest. Sometimes I like purposely mess up so that I can get like jump scared, and even then it's not even worth it. Resident Evil, of course, that's a big one. Just all of them, all the Resident Evil games. What else is there? It's good. I guess the Aliens game. There's the new Aliens game. I haven't played it, but I have it. I intend to do a stream of it at some point, but when I'm actually at home and not on my laptop, because that's going to be a high-intensity game. Also, I really want to get a night vision camera or something. Something that can actually, like, film in the dark, because I like, playing in the dark, and that's why I never use a camera. I mean, not right now. I mean, right now I don't use a camera because it's not good. It's a built-in webcam. Okay, it's not quality. That's why I use the mascot, our channel mascot, as a face. You might have been wondering why there's a dude in the in the bottom corner, and that's because I've learned that people like looking at a face, even if it's not a real face. So my mascot of the channel, his name is RT800. He represents me because I don't know why I do this. People are gonna I always joke about how everyone thinks that I'm a dude online, and then I use a male mascot. But he is a guy, so what can I say? anyways, off topic. Yeah, there's definitely ones that I really want to play. Also all of the Dark Anthology games. Those are really good. They're made by the same people who make Until Dawn, but they're actually for PC and everything else. So if you don't have a PS4 or PS5, what you can do is you can look at the Dark Picture anthologies. You don't need to play Until Dawn to play it. But there's Man of Medan, there's Little Hope, and there's House of Ashes. I think those are the only ones. There might be another one somewhere in there. But those are really good. Those are good. They're high quality. Although they can be pricey because, it's only like, 2 to 4 hours, I guess. Honestly, probably more than 2. I would say it's usually like 12 hours, I would say, at most. But they usually have, like, famous stars in them. Like, this recent one, The House of Ashes, has Ashley Tisdale in it. The last one had the guy from... Did I have Eustace in it? I think... the guy, the kid from Narnia. That one was the Little Hope. I forget his name. I forget the actual name. Man of Medan... I can't remember the cast for that one. I'm sure there were significant people there. I just don't remember. But anyways, it's really cool. But yeah, I like horror. I don't know about you guys, but I like horror. I don't necessarily like playing it because, again, it can get really boring, especially depending on the game. But there are ones that are really good. There are. And honestly, it's the ones that don't even try to be. The ones that don't even try, those can be the most terrifying. Like, you just don't even expect it. Because it's not even tagged, because it's not even supposed to be a horror game to begin with, and yet it is secretly a horror game. But anyways, I think that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know what do you guys think about horror. And also, let me know if you dressed up today. I'm pre-recording this, by the way, if you couldn't tell, because I'm actually away right now. But, yeah. Anyways, I'll see you guys later. And peace out, guys. It's been a blast.